Good day. Top of the hour, we come on the news with breaking news. I'm Tom Costello in for Hallie. A special report right now. The first full week of testimony in Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial wrapping up in just the last few minutes, with who could be the prosecution's star witness now off the stand and two new witnesses appearing this afternoon. The former president just left court in the last 30 minutes or so. We'll tell you what he said a bit later. But first, today's new witnesses, Gary Farrow, and also, he, by the way, is Michael Cohen's former banker. And then we have Rona Graff. She's an ex-executive assistant to Donald Trump. She worked for his company for decades and kept his calendar, his contacts, his emails. She was the gatekeeper and followed David Pecker, the former tabloid king, who Trump's team really pressed on his credibility. Pecker insisted, quote, "I have been truthful to the best of my recollection." Truthful about what prosecutors say were three separate schemes by Mr. Trump to buy stories that could humiliate him and prevent those stories from getting out. And Pecker was clear on one of them involving Karen McDougal, telling prosecutors that he wanted to stop it to help Trump influence the election. It all boils down to this. Donald Trump could face real prison time if convicted on these 34 charges of lying on his business records in New York. The Manhattan DA calls it an illegal election interference scheme. The former president insists he did nothing wrong. Our team of reporters and legal experts will give you and me everything we need to know from this day in New York's court, New York versus Donald Trump. Let's start right now outside the courthouse in Manhattan. NBC's Rahema Ellis is there. And Rahema, how do these two new witnesses this afternoon fit into the narrative?
Tom, let me start with Rona Graff. She was the executive assistant to Donald Trump. She worked with him for 34 years, retiring only, I believe it was in 2021. And the gatekeeper, if you will. She knew who went in and out of the office. One of the things that she testified to was that she saw that Stormy Daniels went into the office of Donald Trump on the 27th floor because Rona Graff sat right outside of his office. Why did she go in? She testified that Donald Trump was interested in possibly having Stormy Daniels participate in The Apprentice. So that's why she was there. The other interesting thing that she brought to this was she mentioned that Donald Trump didn't handle his emails. She did. And she put into the Trump email computer system the name of Stormy and Stormy's telephone number. She also inputted the name of Karen McDougal with her cell phone number as well as her address. So that she's drawing this connection, and the prosecution is trying to make this link of these are not just names that are just in the ether, if you will, but there was a strong connection. This other witness you talked about, and that was Gary Farrow. He was a banker. What he did was he pointed out the fact that there was money that was transferred from Michael Cohen to Stormy Daniels. And let me tell you what he said in reference to that. We've got a full screen here. He talked about the email was dated back in October of 2016, and it was sent to Cohen by an assistant of this bank and the managing director, Gary Farrow, as we talked about him. And it said basically that the bank, First Republic, was transferring the message and confirming that the funds had been deposited into your checking account. That was important because that was the way that Michael Cohen then was going to transfer this money to Stormy Daniels. And this, again, is important. People have talked about this being something that they heard about, that it was true, and it was discussed. But the prosecution is building a case of how the pieces actually fit together for the jury. The jury may not be paying as close attention to all the details as everybody else, but now they certainly have to. Tom?
Yeah, really kind of starting with his own inner circle, Trump's own inner circle. On the Pecker testimony, there was a key moment on the redirect, right, where the prosecution got Pecker to talk about this conversation with Mr. Trump's former fixer, Michael Cohen, about the risks of not paying for the catch-and-kill stories, right?
Oh, absolutely. There was often talk about what was the purpose of catch and kill. Some stories that you want it to be published, and others you wanted to kill them. So you caught those stories, paid for them, and never allowed them to see the light of day. We've got a full screen up here. We want to talk about what David Pecker testified to. He says why this was important. Those stories that come up, he said, I would speak to Michael Cohen and tell him that these are the stories that are going to be for sale. If we don't buy them, somebody else will. So making it clear that there's a market out there, there's that tabloid market that's interested in this kind of material. And it was in Donald Trump's interest to be in control of what that information was, to catch it and to kill it. Tom?
Thank you for clarifying. We're really talking about the tabloids that pay for these stories. Can you pull back the curtain for us? What was the vibe of Donald Trump, of Pecker, of the jury? I think we all want to know. What's the vibe? Did you pick up any body language from the jury as they're in the courtroom and you're listening?
This jury is engaged. They're paying attention. Some of them have even been told they've seen them taking notes, being carefully attentive to everything that's going down. Donald Trump, it was pointed out that he, in the courtroom today, was sitting in his chair, often leaned back, his eyes often closed, but that's no indication that he was sleeping. Maybe he was resting, maybe he was just listening intently, and this was the way he chose to do that. But this was a very engaged courtroom of 12 men and women, these jurors. At one point during the course of the week, there was the talk about it being somewhat like a tennis match in terms of how the jurors were looking back and forth in the courtroom, looking at the prosecution as they're asking the question, and then looking over to Pecker as he was responding, very carefully paying attention to every detail. Tom?
Interesting. Okay, Rahima Ellis, thank you very much. Let's go now to Brian Stelter, a special correspondent for Vanity Fair. And Brian, we're really now getting to this really never-before-seen look at the dirty world of tabloids, because I think a lot of people outside of this business, they may think, well, that's the way all you journalists act and how you do business. It's not.
It's absolutely not.
I don't know anybody who's ever paid for a story, and I've been in this business 35 years.
Yes, and I've covered the National Enquirer for years. I reported on this when these revelations were first coming out 7-8 years ago, and I actually still learned a lot this week because David Pecker had never been interviewed about these matters. He never admitted to this in public before. This had been reported, it had been rumored, but now we actually know the details on the record under oath from David Pecker, and it is astonishing. It's really a lesson in media literacy and news literacy about how these tabloids that serve junk food work. And of course, junk food can be fun, but if you think it's nutritious, then the joke is on you. And that's really, I think, what this is about. People who look at these headlines, they were reading these stories, either pro-Trump, anti-Hillary Clinton stories, they were believing them and buying into them, and that was part of the problem.
Because they are the front page thing you see in the grocery aisle, right? So even if you don't buy the Enquirer, you see the headline, you see the picture, and that starts to sink in, I think, is the effect.
Yes, and you know, Pecker calls it checkbook journalism, but that's really a contradiction. Actual journalism does not involve checkbooks going out and buying stories either to publish them or to kill them. It's notable he doesn't use the phrase catch and kill, by the way. He didn't use that phrase when he was on the stand, but he did admit to checkbook journalism, and for a while it worked. He was living large, enjoying his life as a friend of Donald Trump, but look where he is now, right? No longer at the National Enquirer, and he says he's still a friend of Trump, but I don't think Trump's a friend of his.
All right, so the defense wanted to portray these arguments where Pecker was paying for these stories, wanted to really kind of portray this as standard operating procedure. But let's read now, if we could, from this one exchange we have here where Pecker said that he only had agreements to suppress stories with one presidential candidate. That was Donald Trump, of course. So give us the gut check here based on your reporting. What was the standard operating procedure as it relates to President Trump or presidential candidates and the tabloids?
Right. It is true that these tabloids had caught stories about celebrities in the past, had used those stories to trade favors, et cetera. The difference here, and this is why the prosecution was so focused on this, is that Pecker was admitting that this was a special arrangement just with Donald Trump, not with other politicians, not with other candidates. You know, he was what was known as a friend of Pecker, an FOP.
How close was he? How close were they, and are they now?
You know, they went back decades. The relationship started in the 80s. You know, it's kind of a casual Florida type relationship, but it became cozier during the presidential campaign. That's what's important for the jury to hear. This was really critical during the presidential campaign. Now, of course, Pecker still says they're friends, but there's no evidence of a real friendship there. And you see both men have been diminished, you know, by this entire ordeal.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Don't go anywhere. Let's turn now to our legal correspondent, senior legal correspondent, NBC's Laura Jarrett, who's here, and also legal analysts Danny Savalos and Catherine Christian. Laura, to you first here. The states opted here for two witnesses here. That they weren't necessarily flashy, right? Yeah. Why? And what's the point of this?
So sometimes witnesses are there to tell a story. Sometimes witnesses are there to just do some boring legal stuff like introduce documents, authenticate records. But you got to get that stuff in because there's rules of evidence. And that's what Rona Graff and Gary Farrow are there to do. Rona Graff is there to say, yeah, his Outlook contacts on our internal records have both Karen McDougal and Stormy, a reference, we think, to Stormy Daniels. Mm-hmm. He's tried to distance himself. He's tried to say, I don't really know these people. I think they were related to the apprentice contest at one point. Like, he's trying to do whatever he can to put them at arm's length, and they're in his computer system. And they can't get that in without Rona Graff. Gary Farrow, he's the one who's actually effectuating the payment. So when prosecutors are in there talking about $130,000, they have to get that from somewhere. They need the banker. So those people sort of do that work for them. Even if they sort of seem like, you know, they're just paper pushers, they're important witnesses.
So could you lose the jury because these are really nuts and bolts kind of people? You've already had your headline with Pecker, nuts and bolts here, and then what? What about Michael Cohen? Well,
I imagine he's not going to come in right now. I imagine we're going to start to hear from people like Hope Hicks, even possibly Karen McDougal. I think they're going to save Cohen until the end to sum it all up.
They hope.
They hope.
Catherine, let's talk to you. We know that Graff came under subpoena. What are prosecutors trying to get out of her?
Well, anyone who has an executive assistant knows that the executive assistant knows all of your business. They know who's calling you, who's visiting you. They know whether or not, as in this case, you use email and Donald Trump doesn't. And as Laura said, they know what's in the contacts. So that was her importance. She was very short. There was the cross-examination, interestingly enough, by the defense was really to use her as a character witness for Donald Trump. I worked for him for 34 years. He treats me well. He would check in on me. So they weren't going to beat her up. They said, well, we'll use her to be sort of our witness to say, you know, this is a nice man, and that's why she's worked for him for 34 years. But the executive assistant was very important just to establish Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal were names he knew long before any of this indictment happened.
Danny, what about for the defense here? Because she admitted her lawyers are being paid by Donald Trump. What are the challenges of your approach to someone who might be a bit more friendly to the accused?
Well, in this case, I mean, it's not a big surprise that her lawyers are being paid for by Donald Trump. I don't think that ruins her credibility one way or the other, because really she's a witness who mostly is authenticating and laying foundation. Her testimony was relatively short. And I agree with Catherine completely. The defense took the opportunity to take a witness they might not even have questions for, to actually crowbar in a little character evidence, good character evidence, that Donald Trump was a human being who was nice to her, who treated her well. I thought that was probably making the best of a bad situation with a witness who was certainly no David Pecker and not as devastating, I think, as David Pecker was, or effective, however you want to look at it. But it was an interesting angle to take with a witness that was otherwise probably not as huge as David Pecker or some of the other witnesses we're going to see.
Laura, let's go back to you here, because David Pecker, remember, this is really, ultimately, this is a hush money trial here, and it's all about these secret payments to Stormy Daniels. We haven't heard, really, a lot about her. Expect Pecker, he isn't going to be saying a whole lot about this?
Well, partly because he didn't make the payment, right, Tom? The reason he doesn't make the payment is because Donald Trump hasn't been paying him for the other hush money.
Take a look at the statement he made, by the way, today.
Well...
Print it, buy it, or be associated with. He did not want to be associated with it.
No, he didn't want to be associated with it, but he had made payments in the past. And I think part of the issue with Pecker is that he's sort of there to bring Donald Trump into this fold. He has to be brought into this, alleged plot in some way. And so they don't have anyone else to do that work other than Michael Cohen. And Pecker gives them somebody else who was affable to the jury, Tom. He's smiling. He's not holding back. He wasn't sugarcoating. He's making eye contact. I saw them taking notes as he's testifying. He was a likable character. And so he helps check that box for prosecutors.
He was likable.
He was likable. He's 72 years old. He's not coming off antagonistic at all with prosecutors the way Michael Cohen, I'm sure, will.
Catherine, how does setting up this sort of pattern from Karen McDougal to Stormy Daniels, how does that play for a jury in your view?
Well, for one thing, the doorman's $30,000, Karen McDougal's $150,000. That's all. It goes to show Donald Trump's intent to falsify business records. It was sort of a pattern. Their legal word, they're inextricably interwoven, those events with the indictment. And it completes the whole narrative of that meeting in August 2015, when allegedly Donald Trump and Pecker and Cohen conspired to promote his election by unlawful means. And that's the New York State election law violation. That's that other crime. It appears that the DA's office is saying that Donald Trump intended to commit or conceal, and that's what would make this case a felony. So It's all tied up in a bow. The DA's office hopes. It's like a string. And it's just the Stormy Daniels one is the one that they chose to charge.
Danny, did the Trump team do enough to discredit David Pecker, in your view?
No, they did their duty, and they were always going to go in really three directions, pretty standard directions when you're cross-examining a cooperating witness. You challenge his memory. These things happened years ago, and he even said as much on the stand. You challenge his motive. You say something to the effect of, you're here as part of a non-prosecution agreement. You have a deal with those prosecutors in this room to suggest that he would fabricate. But, of course, on redirect, you saw that they tried to shore that up and say, hey, you're just here to tell the truth. This is about as standard as it gets with cooperating witnesses. And then really the third avenue was unique to this case, and it was to try to get Pecker to admit that, hey, I've been doing this with Trump for decades. We've had this kind of relationship, and I do this with all kinds of celebrities. Then, of course, the people came back and pointed out that, yes, but how many presidential candidates did you do it with? One. Yeah. And so that was probably a good moment for the people.
Laura, let's go back to big picture here. The polls here suggest that just 28% of American adults think the New York hush money case is, in fact, disqualifying. That's much less than the other candidates. And we need to remember the Manhattan DA wants to make this an election interference case as well. If they can't convince the broader public, can they convince a jury here?
Part of the issue is because we keep calling it the hush money case. They have heard for the better part of a year that this case is about hush money. And they've heard that the Jack Smith case is about lofty ideas of democracy and election interference. And now the DA wants to reframe it. And you can understand why, and you can understand how that has jury appeal. But it's hard to unring that bell after a year.
Brian, quickly to you, would Trump be a good witness? He's talked about wanting to appear himself and testify himself, or would he be his own worst enemy on the stand?
I think he might alienate some of the jurors, right? That would be my first impression. When he's out there in the hallway, he's repeating the same messages every day. He doesn't seem to have a lot of energy when it comes to this trial. I think we might, if we see him on the stand, be surprised at how little. And also, here's the problem: we wouldn't see him, right? Because there's no cameras, he wouldn't be able to perform the way he does on television. So I don't think he'd be the same kind of Donald Trump, and I think he could alienate the jury.
Interesting points. Folks, thank you very much. Laura, Danny Savalos, Catherine, and of course, we appreciate always getting Brian's perspective. Thanks, guys. Again, it's not just the legal, it's the politics here. Dasha Burns is here to talk now about that. Dasha, let's talk more about polling, because even if people don't see this trial as disqualifying, there is some concern that the jury may not be able to reach a fair verdict, right?
Well, and Tom, that is the drum that former President Trump has been beating over and over and over again on every platform he can get to outside of the court, on his social media posts. He's been saying this nonstop. And some polling shows that this might be having an effect. If you take a look at the most recent CNN polling, the question was asked, how confident are you that the jury chosen for Trump's trial related to hush money payments will be able to reach a fair verdict? 56% said they were not confident, compared to 44% that said that they were. And the narrative that Trump and his team have been building is that this is a very liberal part of the country. This is a jury that might not necessarily like the former president. Lawyers that I've talked to say, though, this was an extensive jury selection process. That 42 question survey that we've talked about. This is how the process works in this country.
Yeah. So the President Biden, has not done a lot of talking about Trump's trial, but he has apparently decided that he will appear with him in a debate. Here's the president with Howard Stern on radio.
I don't know if you're going to debate your opponent. I am somewhere. I don't know when. I'm happy to debate him.
Well, Trump is asking, even pleading, to take him up on the challenge for debate. When might this happen?
It's a big question mark, Tom, but this is something that Trump and the campaign want. They think that it will be good optics and a good contrast to see both former President Trump and President Biden up on a debate stage. And remember, Trump is not that much younger than Biden, but our polling does consistently show that voters aren't as concerned about Trump's age as they are about Biden's, even though he's had also some slip-ups very publicly on the campaign trail as well. But Trump wants to do this. Take a listen.
We're willing to do it Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, or Friday night on national television. We're ready. Just tell me where. We'll do it at the White House. That would be very comfortable, actually.
And, you know, he also does have this challenge that Biden has been counter-programming. Biden's been in Pennsylvania, in Florida, talking to the voters on the campaign trail while Trump has been in court. And so the opportunity to face him on a debate stage is something that's really appealing to the former president.
Yeah, the question is how many people are really tuned into this right now, other than the media and the political types. No debate on the schedule then right now, but Trump's trial schedule is really tying him up, right, and keeping him off the campaign trail for a lot of the week.
Oh, yeah, off the campaign trail. He can't go to battlegrounds every day. He can't be on the fundraising circuit, which is also important, especially given how much money he's spending on legal fees right now. Yeah, he's got to be in court Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's dark, but back Thursday, Friday. Now, this coming week, though, he is for the first time using that day off of court on Wednesday to go to some of those battlegrounds. He'll be heading to Wisconsin and to Michigan. Those are both states that he won in 2016, but Biden flipped in 2020. The campaign says he'll be hammering home the economy and immigration, comparing and contrasting his record with that of President Biden. So we will see him out on the campaign trail for the first time since this trial has started.
Okay, Dasha Burns, thank you very much. We have a lot of other big headlines tonight. We're going to catch you up on all of that when we pick up regular programming right after the break. We're back on News Now with severe weather hitting the Midwest and the plains at this hour. New video just into us shows these massive twisters touching down. Our weather team saying we could be in for some of the biggest storms yet. We're watching all of it. Then new inflation data just out shows prices are staying stubbornly high. The huge toll inflation is taking, especially on your savings. In the UK, a royal return for King Charles. The monarch's plan to get back to work after a months-long absence for cancer treatment. Then a trendy spa treatment has led to cases of HIV infection in New Mexico, which you need to know before you try, or maybe you don't try, the hottest new thing. And in tonight's original, reading time is getting spicier. Why 2024 is the year of the romance novel coming back with copies flying off the shelves. All right, right now, millions are at risk of severe weather, and we are already starting to see some nasty tornadoes from Texas to Nebraska. Take a look at these rather scary scenes in Waverly this afternoon, like a half hour outside of the state's capital. Here's a look, a tornado on the ground in Lincoln as well. And another one, like 700 miles south in Waco, Texas. Tornadoes are not the only threat. There's also a flood watch and risk for huge hail in this multi-day storm event set to last through the weekend. Remember, this storm system's already caused a lot of damage. You can see it right there. Oklahoma, people's homes just absolutely decimated overnight. Let's bring in now NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman. Michelle, when is the worst coming?
Hi there, Tom. Well, the worst is here right now because we are looking at dangerous storms in the state of Nebraska, extremely large, extremely dangerous. We've had wording from the National Weather Service that we haven't heard in quite a while. We're looking at damage to buildings. Garner Industries saw some damage there. Everyone is accounted for, but there are some injuries. So we're going to be hearing news stories like this as we go throughout the next couple of hours. This is why. Look at radar. We are so active. This is a classic spring storm. All the ingredients came together, and we saw them really pop around 2 o'clock local time. So we're looking looking anywhere from Nebraska all the way down to the state of Texas. The heaviest storms now in Nebraska, but this will be moving off to the east. Now, where you see these pink boxes, those are tornado watches. So this will last over the next couple of hours, keeping those in place. Where you see these red boxes, so many of them are tornado warnings. When you have a tornado warning in your area, you want to heed all your warnings. Get to the lowest level of your house if you can. If you don't have a basement, that's going to be the best place to go. If not, get to an interior room where you have walls that will protect you. But Tom, all these storms down to the state of Texas causing some damage as we go throughout the next 12 hours.
Okay, Michelle, what about the risk of fast-spreading wildfires across the plains? Because these winds are awfully strong, right?
Yeah, we have so much going on. We have the storms, we have really strong winds back behind these storms, and even further back, we have some snow, 2 feet of snow in some parts of the Rockies. So we're looking at winds gusting up to 50 miles per hour coming on the south, southwest, and we have really low humidity into the single digits. We have dry vegetation. So this is creating critical conditions. Where you see the red here, that includes Amarillo, Roswell, into El Paso, seeing really dangerous conditions. You see the orange here, that's an elevated risk. So as we go throughout the next couple of hours, we are looking at, even in tomorrow, we're looking at the chance for fire danger. That means you don't want to light a match, you don't want to use power tools. Really strong wording if you're out and about in this dry vegetation. Tom?
All right, Michelle, thank you very much.
Sure.
Wall Street today, stocks soaring at the closing bell. The S&P capping off its best week since November, snapping a 3-week losing streak. The NASDAQ up big as well, ending a 5-week losing streak. It comes after new data out today shows prices are still going up more than most economists had expected. This is the gauge the Fed watches very closely, up 2.8% in March. That's how much prices have gone up from March of last year compared to this time now. But Americans are still going out and spending, and that brings up a big question. Why are so many people willing to spend even when the prices keep going higher? Let's bring in NBC's Brian Chung, who covers the economy. Brian, this comes as American savings rates have also dipped, right? Makes sense. Prices go up and we save less. But everybody is complaining about higher prices. It doesn't matter how much you make.
Yeah, well, if you're spending more, right, you're having to dip more into your savings. But the big story here is that this inflation gauge, the other inflation gauges as well, for that matter, they really factor in what is the largest cost for us, which is housing. So rental costs and also equivalent mortgage payments, they've been rising over the course of the Federal Reserve having ratcheted up mortgage costs, and landlords continue to raise rates on Americans. So this is something that you don't really have a choice to not spend on. And these are the large components that are buoying the inflation gauges, like the one that you see on your screen, where 2.8%, that's how much prices rose between March of this year and March of last year. Here's the challenge, Tom, is that this preferred gauge is a component in GDP, which is a measure of the American economy growing, which we got just yesterday. It was below expectations, 1.6%. So you need a Goldilocks situation. You want enough spending to make sure that economic growth is positive, but not so much so that inflation's out of control. That's the balancing act that the Federal Reserve is trying to get into place. But again, inflation is still uncomfortably high for them. That's the reason why they're likely to keep rates high.
I don't want to blindside you, but you probably know this off the top of your head. You know, we talk about the year-over-year number, up 2.8% in a year. But if you go back to when inflation really kicked in, right, 3 years ago, people are paying a heck of a lot more than 3% more.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you take a look at peak inflation, I actually do have the numbers off the top of my head, Tom. When you take a look at June of 2022, this particular gauge was something like 7%. Another gauge of inflation, which is the Consumer Price Index, that gauge was at something like 9%. So the yearly rates, as you point out, Tom, it's very important to recognize it's way better than it was in the summer of 2022. But here's the thing, 2.whatever%, where the Fed wants it to be, is 2% flat. We're not there yet. That's why it's not yet mission accomplished.
Real quickly, that graph we are showing is the series of rate hikes that we've already had from the Fed. Is the Fed now less likely to be cutting rates this year because of this latest inflation number?
Well, going into this year, there were expectations that maybe we could see our first rate cuts, which would provide some relief on your mortgage rates and also on your credit card rates or your auto loan rates, something around June. Now the timing pushed back based off of market pricing, somewhere closer to September, Tom.
Best case, September. Okay, thanks, amigo. Brian Chung, watching it all for us. Tonight, growing questions about how the U.S. government might get the bird flu outbreak under control after strands of the dangerous virus have been discovered in more places. The FDA, in just the last 24 hours, has found traces of bird flu in a stunning 20% of pasteurized milk samples, meaning it could be in your grocery store, maybe also in your fridge. Adding to the mounting concerns, the virus could eventually mutate and then start to spread more easily among humans. To be clear, health experts maintain that pasteurized milk is safe to drink. But the Agriculture Department now requiring tests on all dairy cows moving from state to state. At least 34 dairy cow herds in the 8 states that you look at right there are infected right now. Only one person, a dairy worker in Texas, is known to have been infected. Let's bring in now Berkeley Lovelace, who is here to break it all down for us. All right, now the FDA, as I understand, believes that the milk is safe to drink, even with it showing up in pasteurized milk, right? But that still gives people concern when they go out and they buy a gallon of milk.
Right. So, yeah, so the FDA believes pasteurization, the process of heating up milk, should make it so the virus does not survive. And so what the fragments of virus that they found in the milk is believed to be tiny genetic fragments, not live infectious virus. And
that's important. Genetic fractions,
just small,
not live.
Yeah, not live infectious virus. And so that is the belief. So now they're doing more studies to make sure that there is no more live viable virus in the milk. And they're doing so-called egg inoculation tests where they test the infected samples in a chicken egg and see if it replicates in order to see whether or not it's something that is a danger or a risk to humans. But right now, there is no evidence right now that this is actually a risk.
That's good. I'm glad to underscore that. So listen, the bird flu itself has a high mortality rate among birds, right? But how easily, right now, we don't think it can easily be transferred to humans, right? But what's the risk it could mutate?
Right. So the concern is, what the data basically tells us is that this infection among cows is more widespread than we previously thought. One expert I spoke to, Dr. Richard Webby, said the positivity rate of 1 in 5 samples indicates that it's much larger than the 34 herds that we previously thought. And so that's a concern because if it is widely spread among cows, that gives the virus more of an opportunity to replicate into something that could be potentially dangerous to humans. And so that is the concern that experts have right now. And so right now, the virus is deadly to humans, but it doesn't spread easily among people. There's only been one case among a dairy worker, and his case was mild. But if this infection is more widespread, then there could be times where this virus mutates, and that is a concern for experts.
CDC and FDA watching it closely.
Yeah, very closely.
All right, Berkeley, thank you. Berkeley Lovelace on the story for us. Let's go get you over now to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, federal auto safety regulators are investigating whether Tesla did enough to fix autopilot issues in its vehicles. Tesla voluntarily recalled more than 2 million cars back in December to update software that was meant to improve the driver monitoring systems. But since then, Tesla has reported more than a dozen crashes. Tesla has not responded to the new investigation. Number 2, the Department of Agriculture telling poultry producers they need to bring down salmonella levels in some chicken products. The goal is to prevent food poisoning. It's for frozen breaded and stuffed raw chicken products. The new rules will go into effect in 2025. Number 3, Drake has pulled his new song called Tailor Made Freestyle off social media after Tupac's estate threatened to sue him. We told you about this yesterday. The song seemed to use an AI-generated version of Tupac's voice, something Tupac's estate called, I'm quoting here, a blatant abuse of his legacy. Drake's spokesperson declined to comment. Number 4, Caleb Williams, the top pick in last night's NFL draft, apparently breaking records already after the Chicago Bears chose him. Sales for his jersey and other merch reportedly hit a new draft night high for Fanatics. That's for any sport. This is just 10 days after Caitlin Clark broke the previous record. Number 5, Oscar winner Emma Stone now wants to go by her real name, Emily. She says she started her career with a stage name because there was already an Emily Stone in the Screen Actors Guild. Stone says she was freaked out a couple of years ago because she wanted to be called Emily. Her close friends and co-stars already have made the switch. Big news out of Buckingham Palace. King Charles is returning to his public duties next week, we're told, for the first time since the palace announced his cancer diagnosis back in February. The palace says the king's medical team is very encouraged by his progress. What type of cancer the 75-year-old was diagnosed with and what stage he's in, still unclear. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald is outside of Buckingham Palace. Sorry, Megan, I've got a dear friend, Megan Fitzpatrick. Megan Fitzgerald, what more is the palace saying and what could the next couple of months look like for the king?
Well, so Tom, the palace is saying that the king will mark his return to public-facing duties by visiting a cancer treatment facility where he will meet with patients and doctors. No doubt this will be a special visit for him. Obviously, he knows exactly what these patients are going through. As Kensington Palace says, doctors say he will continue his cancer treatment even though he's returning to these duties. But as you mentioned, he's been making such great progress that they feel the time is right for him to resume his duties. And, according to the palace, he's got a number of these engagements ahead. We know especially one that is a state visit with the Emperor and Empress of Japan. That is something that's scheduled to be happening at late June. So certainly a glimmer of hope that the king is on the track to recovery, but they haven't, given much more notice to us about his condition other than the fact that they feel now is the time for him to pick up a little bit more of his workload, Tom.
Yeah, and separately, Princess Kate is also receiving treatment after her cancer diagnosis, but we still don't know much, right, about how she's doing or when she could be returning to public duties as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Kensington Palace has been very tight-lipped about Kate's condition. All they have told us is that she continues to undergo these preventative cancer treatments, chemotherapy treatments rather, and that she's focused on being well and focused on her family, on her 3 young children. We do know that the palace has said that when she is able to return, even if it's just for, an event here and there, or maybe it's through Zoom or through Skype, she will. But again, her focus right now is on getting better. Tom.
All right, Megan, thank you very much. Megan Fitzgerald, who's in London. Coming up this hour, what investigators say caused this historic pier to go up in flames. We're going to go out west and check on that. We're back, and prosecutors in Michigan are laying out new details in that massive explosion at a warehouse containing vape products. They say the business owner charged with manslaughter in the case was moments away from using a one-way plane ticket to Hong Kong before he was arrested. Here's the video from back in March. Huge flames and plumes of smoke caused by what fire investigators say were thousands of exploding canisters that then rained down on the community. As far as 2 miles away from that warehouse, a 19-year-old man who was standing at a car wash nearby was hit with shrapnel and later died. It took firefighters more than a week to fully put out that fire. Local officials say they are working with state, local, and federal agencies to make sure this never happens again.
We want this to be done right, and we want it to be done complete. We don't want this just to be a one-time incident here in Clinton Township. We want to stop it from happening anywhere else.
NBC's Steve Patterson is following this for us. Steve, this investigation is big. Where are investigators right now in determining not just who was responsible for how and why this happened?
We don't have that information, and that may be because, as you mentioned, this investigation is so sprawling, split between the EPA, the ATF, the Michigan State Police, the local prosecutor's office there. And as far as we know, none of those agencies any closer to determining what was the point of ignition here. What was the true cause that lit the fuse that led to this massive explosion? What we do know is that investigators are certainly looking into the catalysts, the materials that were stored in this place of business that, as far as investigators are telling us, should not have been there in the first place. This was a massive, sprawling facility, but it was zoned to be a retail and commercial space, which makes what I'm about to list to you that more egregious as to what investigators found on scene. They found canisters of butane, canisters of nitrous oxide, lighter fluid, and lithium batteries. And if you're sitting at home, all of these things should be ringing alarm bells in your head, because this is what the TSA is screening your bags for at the airport, so your flight doesn't catch on fire. Meanwhile, it may sound a little different than it actually is as well. The EPA is saying that these NO2 canisters, the nitrous oxide, they're about 10 to 15 pounds. One of them, we know, was responsible for flying through the air, spreading that shrapnel and killing that 19-year-old. But the question remains, what was the point of ignition here? Well, investigators are not saying they're leaving anything off the table at this point. Here's the fire chief. Listen to this.
They cannot exclude human involvement in this fire at this time. They would still like to have more investigation, more information. Obviously, our investigation does remain open with the effect that we might still gain information that could lead us to a possible cause of this.
And again, this is a place that I want to reiterate had a commercial license to be a smoke shop. This is a place where people were supposed to get a bong and a T-shirt and a Pepsi and a vape, not a place that is a massive storage facility where the safety of everybody in the community is at hand here. Tom?
Steve, any idea, is there any hint on whether this was intentional? And second of all, the suspect facing involuntary manslaughter charges. What's next for him? I guess involuntary would suggest he didn't intentionally do this.
Sure. Well, we know, obviously, there was some liability at hand when it comes to being the owner of the place in which, again, investigators are telling us these materials were being improperly stored. He was heading to get on that flight, stopped by the Port Authority in large part, and investigators in New York, brought back to Michigan. We know he made bond. He's wearing an ankle bracelet. His next court appearance is scheduled to be May 7th. But as far as other charges beyond involuntary manslaughter, which there may very well be, there hasn't been any indication of whether or not those charges will be brought. Tom?
Steve Patterson in L.A. Watching it all for us. Thank you, Steve. NBC News covers hundreds of stories each day. Way too many to read, watch, or listen to everything. So our bureau teams have selected some highlights, and we call this segment The Local. Out of our Southern Bureau, several people were injured after a multi-bus accident in North Carolina. The group of South Carolina middle schoolers was heading to an amusement park. Their school district says one of the buses rear-ended the other on I-85, which caused that bus to veer off the highway and crash into the woods. None of the injuries appears to be serious. From our Western Bureau, firefighters are working for a second day to put out a massive fire and save a Southern California pier. The intense smoke blanketed the sky in Oceanside yesterday evening. Fire crews used water cannons and airdrops to douse the flames. Most of the structure is expected to be okay, but at least one restaurant was destroyed. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Out of our Northeast Bureau, great news for Beatles lovers. John Lennon's 12-string acoustic guitar is going up for auction at New York's Hard Rock Cafe next month. It was thought to have been lost for decades, but recently found in the attic of a home in Britain. The guitar appeared in the Beatles film Help. If interested, it could be yours if you're willing to dish out between $600,000 and $800,000. No thanks. When we come back, a cosmetic procedure at an unlicensed spa that CDC investigators think gave at least 3 people HIV. What they believe went wrong with the so-called vampire facial. You won't believe it. Stay with us. The CDC is now detailing what it says are the first known cases of HIV transmitted by so-called vampire facial injections. Have you heard about this? The agency is detailing 3 cases where women ended up being diagnosed with the virus, most likely after getting the treatment at an unlicensed spa in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The first case came up in 2018. Then another woman tested positive for HIV a year later, and a third case just last year. In a joint investigation by the CDC and New Mexico's health officials, investigators say they found a rack of unlabeled tubes of blood on a kitchen counter and in the fridge at the spa next to food and injectable anesthetics. They also allegedly found unwrapped needles in drawers, on counters, and in the trash can. Investigators say dozens of clients may have been exposed to HIV. Dr. Kavita Patel joins me now. Kavita, I got to say, I was scratching my head on this one. The owner of that spa has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. How do these so-called vampire facials work?
Yeah, Tom, there's a lot to scratch your head about, but this is actually pretty straightforward. It might not be for everyone, but this has been going on, these vampire facials. More specifically, they use something called PRP, plasma-rich protein. The process is simple, Tom. They take blood from you and take it out from your arm, then take it into a machine, spin it, then take out the golden part of that blood, the serum, the protein-rich part, and then using microneedles, inject it back into other parts of your body, in this case, your face. And it can help plump up collagen. There's reports of it reducing fine lines, that type of thing.
Okay, so if somebody's injecting their own blood, then how are they getting HIV unless there's some sort of cross-contamination, right?
You hit the nail on the head. It's what the CDC found. You just described what is truly a nightmare for any infection control nurse, much less anybody who's a patient who walks in. But there are so many steps in that process: drawing the blood, making sure it's appropriately labeled, then taking out that kind of golden serum, and then even inject back into someone's face. So you could imagine with all those steps, Tom, if you don't label something, you don't swap out the needles, you don't make sure you're using sterile procedures, then you can have kind of a maelstrom of bad effects. And in this case, unfortunately, HIV.
You know, we've been talking about the risks of some cosmetic injections lately. Just recently, we did a story on fake Botox injections.
Right.
And it seems like maybe we're seeing all these treatments becoming kind of trendy. So what should people keep an eye out for if they do want to go to a spa to get a vampire facial or something else, or maybe should they not? But I'll let you pick it up from there.
Right. We know that people are getting them, whether we recommend them or not. The American Academy of Dermatology has said that they haven't really found sufficient evidence for these facials. But Tom, like you said, people are getting them. The CDC recommends that we put requirements in place for these aesthetic procedures. But until then, Tom, kind of beware of the environment. If you walk in and you're not seeing kind of these sterile practices, you don't notice people washing hands, putting gloves on, making sure they're double checking your name, your date of birth. If they do anything with blood, then get out. It's just not worth it. You should even be able to comfortably ask at the front desk and say, let me understand what your safety procedures are. Tom, these are cash pocket, out of pocket practice. This is not covered by insurance. You have the right to ask. Always ask up front.
And the right to walk away. Thank you, Dr. Patel. Appreciate it. All right. Still to come, we take you inside the juicy page-turning world of romance novels, now getting some new fans. That's coming up in our original. Things are moving fast. Good day. A building narrative at the New York Trump trial with new testimony just wrapping what we're learning from Mr. Trump's former assistant, the gatekeeper behind Mr. Trump's calendars, his contacts, and his emails. Then President Biden's plan to ban menthol cigarettes coming to a screeching halt. The election year's calculus behind that move as the president is agreeing for the first time to debate Donald Trump. In the United Kingdom, a royal return for King Charles, his plan to get back to work after undergoing cancer treatments. Back stateside, really severe weather hitting the Midwest and the plains. New video just into us of these massive twisters. Our weather team is watching all of this, the dangerous weekend ahead. And the FDA finding traces of bird flu in more milk samples. Health experts say it's still safe to drink as the government tries to get the outbreak under control. Good day. I'm Tom Costello in for Hallie. Happy Friday to you. And we start with this first full week of testimony in Donald Trump's criminal hush money trial, wrapping for the week with who could be the prosecution's star witness now off the stand, and two new witnesses appearing this afternoon. The former president just left court in the last hour or so. We'll tell you what he had to say a bit later. But first, today's new witnesses: Gary Farrow, Michael Cohen's former banker, and Rona Graff. She's an ex-executive assistant to Donald Trump. She worked for his company for decades and kept his calendar, his contacts, his emails. She was the gatekeeper. Followed by David Pecker, the former tabloid king. She followed him, who Trump's team pressed on his credibility. Pecker insisted, quote, "I've been truthful to the best of my recollection." Truthful about what prosecutors say were three separate schemes by Mr. Trump to buy stories that could humiliate him and prevent those stories from actually getting out. And Pecker was clear on one of them, involving Karen McDougal, telling prosecutors he wanted to stop it to help Trump influence the election. It all boils down to this: Donald Trump could face real prison time if convicted on these 34 charges of lying on his business records. The Manhattan DA calls it an illegal election interference scheme. The former president says he did nothing wrong. We'll get to the legal breakdown in just a minute from Danny Savalos. First, though, let's start with NBC's Dasha Burns. Dasha, tell us more about these two new witnesses and specifically why they matter.
So with these two new witnesses, Tom, we really start to get into sort of the nitty-gritty details, the evidence and the proof of some of the fundamentals in this case. So Rona Graff testified that the former president, that Donald Trump did have both Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels in his contacts. She also testified to seeing Stormy Daniels at Trump Tower at one point. Now, the defense, on the other hand, was able to use her to kind of paint a bit of a picture of Trump as a person, to humanize him a little bit, asking her about what he was like as a boss. She said he was very fair. She stayed there working for him for 34 years. So the defense got a little bit out of Graff as well. Now, the second witness after Graff, Gary Farrow, was Cohen's former banker. And that, again, nitty-gritty, but getting into the details of the money, of how money went from one place to another, and how Cohen really set up a way to try and separate and put at arm's length Donald Trump from these payments he paid himself. Farrow allegedly helped set up a home equity line of credit through which Cohen paid Daniels. And we have new NBC News reporting that has an email dated October 26, 2016, that was sent to Cohen by an assistant from First Republic Bank, senior managing director Gary Farrow. The email seeming to have been a reply to Cohen saying that the funds have been deposited into your checking account. So again, all of the allegations that the prosecution is making, Farrow is the guy that can kind of follow the money trail, if you will.
Yeah. What moment stood out to you today from the David Pecker testimony?
Well, so the cross-examination of Pecker, the defense attorney was trying to do two things. Number one, undermine him by poking holes in his memory, trying to paint him as having a hard time recollecting or having a hard time being truthful. That's you read a little bit of that in the intro there. The other story that the defense attorneys were trying to paint is that what Pecker, Cohen, and Trump did, the catch and kill schemes, the paying sources, that was all standard operating procedure. It was mutually beneficial that the National Enquirer benefited from these kinds of arrangements, not just with Trump, but also with other celebrities, and that this was like normal, nothing to see here. What the prosecution was able to do, though, is go back to Pecker and say, okay, but how many of the other people you did this with were candidates for president? And there was one moment where the prosecution asked Pecker, if you had run the Karen McDougal story, that she had an affair with former President Trump, would that have been good for the Enquirer? Pecker said it would have been Enquirer gold. So clearly, what he was doing for Trump was different than the arrangements that he had with some of the other celebrities. And again, this goes to try to paint the picture that the prosecution is trying to illustrate for the jury, which is that Pecker did this to influence the 2016 election and that Trump was aware of it all.
And what witnesses do we expect next week?
We're going to pick back up with Gary Farrow again. And then we don't know exactly who the prosecution will call next. We do know that it's likely we will hear from Karen McDougal, from Stormy Daniels, of course, Michael Cohen, and potentially others like Hope Hicks, who was around the former president at that time.
Okay, Dasha, thank you. Dasha Burns covering this for us. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos joins us now. Danny, what did you make of these two new witnesses this afternoon? They seemed really in the weeds, and was their point really just to kind of reinforce everything that Pecker said?
Yeah, trials are not all sex and excitement. It just so happened that this trial began with a lot of sex and sex stories with David Pecker. David Pecker was a riveting witness. Most witnesses at trial are boring, especially economic crimes, because there's a lot of paper. There's a lot of dollars and cents and accounting and things like that, bank records, which are unbelievably boring. I've sat through many trials of white-collar type crimes, and they can drag on, even when you are one of the attorneys on the case. So what you saw in David Pecker was the unusual situation where you have a witness who's just so riveting. And David Pecker was that witness. It's surely why they opened with him, the people, because they knew that he would be a compelling witness, and he was. And a witness that really you couldn't cross-examine too much on. Yeah, you got the basics that you would have with a cooperating witness, which is memory, motive to fabricate, you've got a deal, don't you? And then the point that, hey, they had been doing this kind of catch and kill for decades before the election. But on redirect, I feel like the people shored that up by saying, yeah, but how many presidents did you do this for? Exactly one. By that, I mean presidential candidates.
Yeah, so I'm just wondering, what did the Trump team succeed at all in discrediting him? And I say that with a caveat because Trump actually spoke highly of Pecker in the middle of the trial.
A little, but you can't score on every single witness. The life of criminal defense is just taking shots wherever you can, and sometimes there are going to be witnesses that are just bad for your case. After all, the prosecution gets to pick the facts. The defense does not. They get to pick the very best witnesses that they want to go up on that stand, and that's what they did with David Pecker. So sometimes there's just not a lot to ask. You saw that with Rona Graff. The defense didn't have a whole lot to ask her. Yes, they tried to make it into a mini character evidence moment where they said, wasn't he a nice boss? And that was rather clever, but I mean, you weren't going to get too far with some of these witnesses. And David Pecker, you have to cross-examine him. You have to raise those issues. But all in all, I think David Pecker was really a good witness for the people.
All right. So then how does the prosecution keep the momentum going next week? Who's going to be on the stand?
It's tough. I mean, there is a lot of planning when it comes to witnesses. Witness planning for the prosecution is everything. They have to tell a story chronologically, but they also keep in mind they don't want to bore people too much, so they want to keep it interesting to some degree. Some of these witnesses, like Rona Graff, was a brief witness. You need to lay foundation. You need people to authenticate documents. You need people to corroborate testimony from your other star witnesses like Michael Cohen, who might have credibility issues. You get all of these other people in who have no motive to fabricate, and their testimony lines up with what Michael Cohen says, then you've deleted your credibility problem.
Yeah, Danny, real quickly, if you were the defense attorney, would you put your own client, would you put Trump on the stand as a witness?
Okay. I'm going against the majority of everybody who says that Donald Trump will not and should not testify. I do agree he probably shouldn't, but I still think there's a chance that he might, because he has the absolute constitutional right to testify and the absolute constitutional right to disregard his attorney's sound advice and testify. Most of us criminal defense attorneys are risk averse. Even if we think our client could tell a good story, it's too scary to put him on the stand. If you're ahead, you can snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. So that's why you very rarely see criminal defendants take the stand.
And he is supremely confident. All right, Danny, thank you very much. Danny Savalos with the legal analysis. Right now, millions are at risk of severe weather, and we are already starting to see some nasty tornadoes from Texas to Nebraska. Let's bring in now NBC meteorologist Michelle Grossman. Michelle, where's the threat right now? Where's it biggest right now?
All right. Hi there, Tom. Well, we're looking at the state of Nebraska into Iowa. Really large, dangerous storms. We saw those pictures, just really intense pictures. Hard to believe of that tornado going over I-80. It's flipping semis. Trees are being ripped out of the roots. We're looking at houses being collapsed. Also buildings. There was a building collapse, part of it at least, for Garner Industries. Luckily, everyone is accounted for, but there are injuries. So we're going to be hearing stories like this because we have a spring setup where we're looking at storms all the way from Nebraska down to the state of Texas. Look at all this rain, heavy rain. We're going to see this continuing over the next couple of hours. Lots of lightning, large hail, could see 2-inch size hail. But then notice all these warnings along this front here. So we have the pink, that is your tornado watch boxes from portions of the northern plains into the southern plains and also the Midwest. And then we have tornado warnings. That is in the red, those little boxes there. I'll show you that a little bit closer in just a minute. And then to the south, we have some orange. That's indicating where we have severe thunderstorm warnings. So a really active scene as we're heading through this Friday evening. Now, as we go to the most active area, we're looking at Nebraska into Iowa. So we're starting to see these storms move into the state of Iowa. Again, these are large. These are dangerous. We saw that wedge tornado, which is a wide tornado. Lots of lightning here with these storms. We're seeing rotation. That's where you're seeing the red boxes. So radar indicated rotation. Lots of lightning, heavy rain. And then as we head a little bit further down to the south, now we're talking Kansas into Missouri. Really heavy rain here, too. And the problem is we have this storm system moving in tonight, bringing all this weather. And then we have another storm system right on the heel. So it's not the same storm system that's going to bring the severe weather tomorrow. It's another one, and it's going to be in the same exact area. So here's another tornado warning where we're seeing that on radar. Then down to the south and parts of Texas, we're looking at lots of lightning, some really heavy rain. Where you see the purple there, that's probably where we're seeing some hail falling in that area. So between Dallas and also Tyler, pretty close to Tyler. So if you're in this area, you want to heed any warning. You want to get to the lowest level of your house. If you're on the road, you want to pull to the side, put your seatbelt on, or get to a ditch if you can. Back to you.
Okay, and we've also got a severe wind risk, and that means potential fires, right? Wildfires.
Yeah, we have so much. So behind this, we have really strong winds coming from the west, the southwest, really low humidity. And then even back further to the west, we have snow falling in the Rockies where we could see 2 feet of snow. So we're looking at a large system here. Now, in terms of this fire threat, we're looking at the red here. That is a critical risk. So Amarillo to Roswell, also El Paso over the next couple of hours because we have those really strong winds gusting to 50 miles per hour, the really low humidity levels, also really dry vegetation. Those three ingredients come together to sort of create this dangerous situation. You see the orange here, that's an elevated risk as well. So this will be over throughout the next 12 hours. It will dissipate a little bit tonight, and then tomorrow we're going to see another fire risk as we head into Saturday. Back to you.
Okay, Michelle, thank you very much. Michelle Grossman is watching all of it for us. The Biden administration says it's pumping the brakes on its plan to ban menthol cigarettes, a divisive plan from the get-go. It would have been a risky move in an election year, potentially alienating a ton of African-American smokers, 80% of whom say they smoke menthol cigarettes ahead of the race in November. The FDA says a menthol ban would really mean more than 650,000 deaths, potentially, would avoid those deaths over the next 40 years. The Biden administration says the benefits simply don't stop there. Banning menthols would prompt more than 1 million people to quit smoking, cutting down on kids starting to smoke, and then addressing also the racial health disparities. Let's bring in now NBC's Aaron Gilchrist, who is posted up by the White House. Aaron, this push from the White House dates back nearly 3 years at this point. What do we know about the political calculus right now to make this decision on the delay?
So really, Tom, the FDA has been driving the rulemaking process on this potential ban of menthol cigarettes, and it's something that really has seen that pushback really from the beginning. Initially, we did some reporting, and the Wall Street Journal has again reported on this today, that there were industry groups that said, you know what, there's a chance that you create an illicit cigarette market if you ban menthol cigarettes. There was also this concern from civil rights groups and from academics that if you ban these sorts of cigarettes, you would see police start to use this as another way to approach and potentially create conflict with black people who may be maybe smoking these types of cigarettes, or who may be, I know when I was a kid, the term was selling loosies, so just individual cigarettes. The FDA has come back and said, as they're looking at the rulemaking process, they were really looking at talking to manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, and stopping their ability to put these products on the market. Today, we did get a statement from the Department of Health and Human Services about where this process stands, as it was delayed late last year into this year, and then again delayed last month. And that statement reads in part, we'll put it up on the screen here for you, and highlighted I think what is a key part here. It's clear that there are still more conversations to have, and that will take significantly more time. It referenced there as well that they've gotten feedback from civil rights groups and criminal justice groups. We heard from the National Action Network late this afternoon, Tom, saying that essentially that it's happy that there's been a pause placed on this so that there can be more conversations about how to make sure that the criminal justice system is aware of the rule and how it does and doesn't apply to the work that happens in that system, Tom.
Interesting. Aaron, another campaign move. President Biden finally saying earlier today that he will debate former President Trump, telling that to famed shock jock Howard Stern. Let's take a listen to that.
I don't know if you're going to debate your opponent. I am somewhere. I don't know when. I'm happy to debate him.
Well, there it is. He says, I am. Pretty definitive there. But are we hearing anything from the White House or the Trump camp about when or where this might happen?
So on the Biden side of this, it's not something that the White House has really wanted to talk about. It's not something that the Biden campaign has really wanted to talk about, this idea of if and when a debate might happen. Last month, President Biden was asked, would he commit to, or will he commit to, debating former President Trump? And he said that it depends on his behavior. And now we have in this interview with Howard Stern, the president saying that he is open to the idea of debate, that he will debate Donald Trump. And so the response from the Trump campaign and from former President Trump was almost immediate, going to his social media platform, saying that, anytime, any place. The campaign put out a couple of tweets that said, let's do it, let's set it up. I want you to hear some of what former President Trump said about this as he was coming outside the courtroom in New York City today. Listen.
We're willing to do it Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, or Friday night on national television. We're ready. Just tell me where. We'll do it at the White House. That would be very comfortable, actually.
And so I'm just double checking my phone here. I reached out to the campaign, Tom, for a reaction to that statement. No reaction yet from the Biden campaign. Typically, we do see 3 presidential debates before a presidential election that are formal debates that are run by the Presidential Debate Commission. And so, Tom, at this point, no idea when exactly those debates might happen in a formal way, but we'll be looking out to see if they do end up on the calendar.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Aaron Gilchrist. New pro-Palestinian protests continue to pop up on campuses across the country. Arizona State University says campus police there have started arresting people for setting up what they call an unauthorized encampment that violates school policies. At Ohio State University, the school says 36 people were arrested after protesters clashed with police overnight. At George Washington University, the school is telling students they could be suspended if they're still in the encampment on campus after a deadline passed earlier today. NBC's Guad Venegas is at the University of Texas at Austin. Guad, you've had several days of rallies and demonstrations there, and now the university president has a new message after taking an awful lot of heat for how the school tried to break up protests with the governor also getting involved, right?
Tom, that's correct. He's been criticized because he brought in state troopers on Wednesday during that first walkout that took place right where we are at now. Not just students, but also members of the staff faculty that came out yesterday criticizing the university and the president for the presence of police and the state troopers, and also the way they came in riot gear on horses, creating that standoff that we saw that led to a large group of students being arrested. A lot of them have been released. Charges have been dropped with most of these students. So the president is standing by his decision, releasing more information. Now, this new release indicates that the university had information that the organizers of that walkout had patterns that were consistent with the movements they've seen in other schools. As you can see in the statement here, problematic aspects that planned the protests that were modeled for the national organization's playbook, referring to what they've seen in other schools. The president said they did not want to see students occupy this area the way it's been done in other places. But the members of the faculty here, in fact, the faculty council sent an email internally to all of them voicing the concern because of the presence of state troopers. That was really the one thing that upset a lot of people here. And, you know, the walkout happened on Wednesday. That's when the state troopers came in. There was another walkout yesterday with just as many students. The difference is that they did not call the state troopers, and that took place without any violence. It ended and students went home. And today, as you can see, there's another gathering. This is a different type of gathering. It's led by faculty. They're talking to the students. They're supporting Palestine, but they're also leading different discussions. We're going to hear from a student that is part of an organization where Jewish students and Arab students have a lot of dialogue. And what they want is more people to join that group and work on this dialogue.
While there might be individual incidents of anti-Semitism, it does not reflect the movement as a whole. As a Jewish individual, I feel very safe. I can walk into this space and be greeted with love and hugs by my Palestinian and Arab brothers and sisters.
And as we were having that conversation, behind us, you can see the people in support of Palestine, and right next to them, students with Israeli flags protesting in favor of Israel, both doing it peacefully and having that conversation, Tom.
All right, Guad, thank you very much. Guad Venegas, who's in Austin for us. Big news out of Buckingham Palace. King Charles is returning to his public duties next week for the first time since the palace announced his cancer diagnosis back in February. The palace says the king's medical team is very encouraged by his progress. What type of cancer the 75-year-old was diagnosed with and what stage he's in, still unclear. The palace is also releasing a new photo as part of this announcement, coming just days ahead of the first anniversary of King Charles' coronation. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald is outside of Buckingham Palace for us. What more is the palace saying, and what could the next couple of months look like for the king?
Well, so, Tom, the palace is saying that the king will mark his return to public-facing duties by visiting a cancer treatment facility where he will meet with patients and doctors. No doubt this will be a special visit for him. Obviously, he knows exactly what these patients are going through. As Kensington Palace says, doctors say he will continue his cancer treatment even though he's returning to these duties. But as you mentioned, he's been making such great progress that they feel the time is right for him to resume his duties. And, you know, according to the palace, he's got a number of these engagements ahead. We know especially one that is a state visit with the Emperor and Empress of Japan. That is something that's scheduled to be happening at late June. So certainly a glimmer of hope that the king is on the track to recovery, but they haven't, you know, given much more notice to us about his condition other than the fact that they feel now is the time for him to pick up a little bit more of his workload, Tom.
Yeah, and separately, Princess Kate is also receiving treatment after her cancer diagnosis, but we still don't know much, right, about how she's doing or when she could be returning to public duties as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So Kensington Palace has been very tight-lipped about Kate's condition. All they have told us is that she continues to undergo these preventative cancer treatments, chemotherapy treatments, rather, and that she's focused on being well and focused on her family, on her 3 young children. We do know that the palace has said that when she is able to return, even if it's just for, you know, an event here and there, or maybe it's through Zoom or through Skype, she will. But again, her focus right now is on getting better. Tom.
All right, Megan, thank you very much. Megan Fitzgerald, who's in London. Still to come on the show, California in the wake of a norovirus outbreak, why health officials are really saying stay away, stay far away from that. And all the flammable items found in a warehouse that went up in flames. Now investigators are saying it all could have been avoided. Coming up next. We're back. Prosecutors in Michigan are laying out new details about that massive explosion at a warehouse that contained vape products. They say the business owner charged with manslaughter in the case was moments away from using a one-way plane ticket to go to Hong Kong before he was arrested. Here's the video from back in March. Look at that. Huge flames and smoke caused by what fire investigators say were thousands of exploding canisters that then rained down on the community as far as 2 miles away from the warehouse. A 19-year-old who was standing at a car wash nearby was hit with a shrapnel and later died. It took firefighters more than a week to fully put the fire out. Local officials say they're working now with state, local, and federal agencies to try to make sure this never happens again.
We want this to be done right, and we want it to be done complete. We don't want this just to be a one-time incident here in Clinton Township. We want to stop it from happening anywhere else.
NBC's Steve Patterson is following this for us. Steve, this investigation is big. Where are investigators right now in determining not just who was responsible for how and why this happened?
You know, we don't have that information, and that may be because, as you mentioned, this investigation is so sprawling, split between the EPA, the ATF, the Michigan State Police, the local prosecutor's office there. And as far as we know, none of those agencies any closer to determining what was the point of ignition here. What was the true cause that lit the fuse that led to this massive explosion? What we do know is that investigators are certainly looking into the catalysts, the materials that were stored in this place of business that, as far as investigators are telling us, should not have been there in the first place. This was a massive, sprawling facility, but it was zoned to be a retail and commercial space, which makes what I'm about to list to you that more egregious as to what investigators found on scene. They found canisters of butane, canisters of nitrous oxide, lighter fluid, and lithium batteries. And if you're sitting at home, all of these things should be ringing alarm bells in your head, because this is what the TSA is screening your bags for at the airport so your flight doesn't catch on fire. Meanwhile, it may sound a little different than it actually is as well. The EPA saying that these NO2 canisters, the nitrous oxide, they're about 10 to 15 pounds. One of them, we know, was responsible for flying through the air, spreading that shrapnel and killing that 19-year-old. But the question remains, what was the point of ignition here? Well, investigators are not saying they're leaving anything off the table at this point. Here's the fire chief. Listen to this.
They cannot exclude human involvement in this fire at this time. They would still like to have more investigation, more information. Obviously, our investigation does remain open with the effect that we might still gain information that could lead us to a possible cause of this.
And again, this is a place that I want to reiterate had a commercial license to be a smoke shop. This is a place where people were supposed to get a bong and a T-shirt and a Pepsi and a vape, not a place that is a massive storage facility where the safety of everybody in the community is at hand here. Tom.
Steve, any idea, is there any hint on whether this was intentional? And second of all, the suspect facing involuntary manslaughter charges. What's next for him? I guess involuntary would suggest he didn't intentionally do this.
Sure. Well, we know, obviously, there was some liability at hand when it comes to being the owner of the place in which, again, investigators are telling us these materials were being improperly stored. He was heading to get on that flight, stopped by the Port Authority in large part, and investigators in New York, brought back to Michigan. We know he made bond. He's wearing an ankle bracelet. His next court appearance is scheduled to be May 7th. But as far as other charges beyond involuntary manslaughter, which there may very well be, there hasn't been any indication of whether or not those charges will be brought. Tom.
Steve Patterson in L.A. Watching it all for us. Thank you, Steve. Tonight, growing questions about how the U.S. government might get the bird flu outbreak under control after strands of the dangerous virus have been discovered in more places. The FDA, in just the last 24 hours, has found traces of bird flu in a stunning 20% of pasteurized milk samples, meaning it could be in your grocery store, maybe also in your fridge. Adding to the mounting concerns, the virus could eventually mutate and start to spread more easily in humans. To be clear, health experts maintain pasteurized milk is still safe to drink. But the Agriculture Department is now requiring tests on all dairy cows moving from state to state. At least 34 dairy cow herds in the 9 states you're looking at right there are infected right now. Only one person, a dairy worker in Texas, is known to have been infected so far. Let's bring in now NBC's Berkeley Lovelace, who's here to break it all down for us. The FDA, as I understand, believes that the milk is safe to drink, even with it showing up in pasteurized milk, right? But that still gives people concern when they go out and they buy a gallon of milk.
Right. So, yeah, so the FDA believes pasteurization, the process of heating up milk, should make it so the virus does not survive. And so what the fragments of virus that they found in the milk is believed to be tiny genetic fragments, not live infectious virus. And
that's so important. Genetic fractions, just small, not live.
Yeah, not live infectious virus. And so that is the belief. So now they're doing more studies to make sure that there is no more live viable virus in the milk. And they're doing so-called egg inoculation tests where they test the infected samples in a chicken egg and see if it replicates in order to see whether or not it's something that is a danger or a risk to humans. But right now there is no evidence right now that this is actually a risk.
That's good. I'm glad to underscore that. So listen, the bird flu itself has a high mortality rate among birds, right? But how easily, right now, we don't think it can easily be transferred to humans, right? But what's the risk it could mutate?
Right. So the concern is, what the data basically tells us is that this infection among cows is more widespread than we previously thought. One expert I spoke to, Dr. Richard Webby, said the positivity rate of 1 in 5 samples indicates that it's much larger than the 34 herds that we previously thought. And so that's a concern because if it is widely spread among cows, that gives the virus more of an opportunity to replicate into something that could be potentially dangerous to humans. And so that is the concern that experts have right now. And so right now, the virus is deadly to humans, but it doesn't spread easily among people. There's only been 1 case among a dairy worker, and his case was mild. But if this infection is more widespread, then there could be times where this virus mutates, and that is a concern for experts.
CDC and FDA watching it closely.
Yeah, very closely.
All right, Berkeley, thank you. Berkeley Lovelace on the story for us. Now, over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, a former Colorado paramedic sentenced today in the death of Elijah McClain. Jeremy Cooper got 4 years of probation for criminally negligent homicide. Remember, McClain died back in 2019 after a police stop where he was put in a neck hold and injected with ketamine. 3 of the 5 officers and paramedics were convicted. Number 2, federal auto safety regulators are investigating whether Tesla did enough to fix autopilot issues in its vehicles. Tesla voluntarily recalled more than 2 million cars. That was back in December to update the software. That was meant to improve the driver monitoring systems. But since then, Tesla has reported more than a dozen crashes. Tesla has not responded to the new investigation. Number 3, California health authorities are saying don't sell or serve frozen raw oysters from a Korean company because they might be contaminated with norovirus. Already more than 30 cases of the virus have been reported from people who recently ate raw oysters at a few restaurants in the San Diego area. Norovirus is super contagious, can cause major GI problems. Korean marine officials asked the company, JBR Inc., to recall the oysters. Number 4, Caleb Williams, the top pick in last night's NFL draft, is apparently breaking records already. He's not even on the field. After the Chicago Bears chose him, sales for his jerseys and other merch reportedly hit a new draft night high for fanatics. That's for any sport, and it comes just 10 days after Caitlin Clark broke the previous record. Number 5, check this out. Paleontologists in Argentina say they found a new dinosaur. They say it lived about 90 million years ago, ran really, really fast, and was a herbivore. So cavemen and cavewomen were safe. I know. When we come back, why people are still spending even though prices keep going up, and the deadly rains and the floods sweeping cities across East Africa. We will take you there when we come back. We're back. Stocks were soaring on Wall Street today at the closing bell. The S&P capping off its best week since November, snapping a 3-week losing streak, and the Nasdaq up big too, ending a 5-week losing streak there. It comes after new data out today shows prices are still going up, more than most economists expected. This is the gauge the Fed watches very closely. It was up 2.8% in March. That's how much prices have gone up for March of 2023. But Americans are still going out and spending, and that brings up a big question. Why are so many people willing to spend even when prices keep going up? Let's bring in NBC's Brian Chung. This comes as American savings rates have also dipped, right? Makes sense. Prices go up and we save less. But everybody is complaining about higher prices. It doesn't matter how much you make.
Yeah, well, if you're spending more, right, you're having to dip more into your savings. But the big story here is that this inflation gauge, the other inflation gauges as well, for that matter, they really factor in what is the largest cost for us, which is housing. So rental costs and also equivalent mortgage payments, they've been rising over the course of the Federal Reserve having ratcheted up mortgage costs, and landlords continue to raise rates on Americans. So this is something that you don't really have a choice to not spend on. And these are the large components that are buoying inflation gauges, like the one that you see on your screen, where 2.8%, that's how much prices rose between March of this year and March of last year. Here's the challenge, Tom, is that this preferred gauge is a component in GDP, which is a measure of the American economy growing, which we got just yesterday. It was below expectations, 1.6%. So you need a Goldilocks situation. You want enough spending to make sure that economic growth is positive, but not so much so that inflation's out of control. That's the balancing act that the Federal Reserve is trying to get into place. If, again, inflation is still uncomfortably high for them, that's the reason why they're likely to keep rates high.
I don't want to blindside you, but you probably know this off the top of your head. You know, we talk about the year-over-year number, up 2.8% in a year. But if you go back to when inflation really kicked in, right, 3 years ago, people are paying a heck of a lot more than 3% more.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you take a look at peak inflation, I actually do have the numbers off the top of my head, Tom. When you take a look at June of 2022, this particular gauge was something like 7%. Another gauge of inflation, which is the Consumer Price Index, that gauge was at something like 9%. So the yearly rates, as you point out, Tom, it's very important to recognize it's way better than it was in the summer of 2022. But here's the thing, 2.whatever%, where the Fed wants it to be, is 2% flat. We're not there yet. That's why it's not yet mission accomplished.
Real quickly, that graph we are showing is the series of rate hikes that we've already had from the Fed. Is the Fed now less likely to be cutting rates this year because of this latest inflation number?
Well, going into this year, there were expectations that maybe we could see our first rate cuts, which would provide some relief on your mortgage rates and also on your credit card rates or your auto loan rates, something around June. Now the timing pushed back based off of market pricing, somewhere closer to September, Tom.
Best case, September. Okay, thanks, amigo. Brian Chung, watching it all for us. You know, hundreds of stories are in our headlines every day on the international side. It's awfully tough to read, to watch, or listen to all of them. Our teams around the world have done it for you. Here's a look at what they are watching, and we call this segment The Global. From East Africa, at least 200 people in Kenya and Tanzania are dead after weeks of heavy rain and flooding in the region. Thousands more have been forced from their homes. You can see houses fully submerged, people wading through the water up to their waist. The Kenya Meteorological Department says even more heavy rainfall is expected within the next few days. Out of the Vatican, Pope Francis will attend the G7 summit in Italy in June. According to Italy's prime minister, he will be the first pontiff to ever attend the summit. The Vatican says Pope Francis will participate in a session discussing the ethics around artificial intelligence. And from France, a Parisian chocolatier is revealing some sweet treats for this year's Olympics. The shop will make 15,000 chocolates in the shape of the Paris 2024 mascots. Remember, the official mascots are called Frige, basically little red caps. That'll be good. China hitting the U.S. with a new warning over what it says is a downward spiral in relations between the two countries. As Secretary of State Antony Blinken and the President of China, Xi Jinping, meet in Beijing in a trip dominated by the tension between these superpowers. Both sides appearing at least to want to stabilize relations, even as Blinken warns China against its support for Russia's war against Ukraine. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frayer has more from Beijing.
The Secretary of State's visit came with no shortage of issues, most of them causing friction between the U.S. and China. Secretary Blinken was aiming to preserve a relationship that had a reset late last year, but there's every sign that it is still tenuous. There was some progress on pragmatic fronts, like talks on fentanyl and AI, but failed to move on anything contentious, like Taiwan, the South China Sea, or China's economic lifeline to Russia. Blinken met with China's leader, Xi Jinping, who told him the U.S. should, quote, stop saying one thing and doing another. In a statement, Xi said that China and the U.S. should be partners, not rivals, and that the U.S. needs to accept China's development. That's a reference to tariffs and complaints of overcapacity. For Blinken, the focus of his talks with Foreign Minister Wang Yi, that lasted 5 hours, was Russia and U.S. concerns that China is supplying dual-use goods that are effectively sustaining the war in Ukraine. At that news conference, he did not acknowledge the possibility of U.S. sanctions on Chinese banks because of links to Russia. Now, it was less than a year ago that Mr. Blinken visited here after the spy balloon pushed relations with China to an historic low. This trip was more relaxed, in Shanghai at least. It's where he saw a basketball game, he ate dumplings, he met with students and strolled on the Bund. Here in Beijing, Chinese officials laid out their grievances, including an $8 billion Taiwan package that was approved by the Senate just as Secretary Blinken landed here. Now, both sides say they want to keep the lines of communication open, though Wang Yi warned Mr. Blinken that relations could easily, quote, return to a downward spiral.
All right, Janice Mackey-Frayer in Beijing for us. Still to come, ever heard of a vampire facial? Well, we're going to tell you some links some folks are going to be wrinkle-free and how this could be costing them their health. And please don't try this at home. We're coming back. The CDC is now detailing what it says are the first known cases of HIV transmitted by so-called vampire facial injections. Have you heard about this? The agency is detailing 3 cases where women ended up being diagnosed with the virus, most likely after getting the treatment at an unlicensed spa in Albuquerque, New Mexico. The first case came up in 2018. Then another woman tested positive for HIV a year later, and a third case just last year. In a joint investigation by the CDC and New Mexico's health officials, investigators say they found a rack of unlabeled tubes of blood on a kitchen counter and in the fridge at the spa next to food and injectable anesthetics. They also allegedly found unwrapped needles in drawers, on counters, and in the trash can. Investigators say dozens of clients may have been exposed to HIV. Dr. Kavita Patel joins me now. Kavita, I got to say, I was scratching my head on this one. The owner of that spa has been sentenced to 2 years in prison. How do these so-called vampire facials work?
Yeah, Tom, there's lots to scratch your head about, but this is actually pretty straightforward. It might not be for everyone, but this has been going on, these vampire facials. More specifically, they use something called PRP, plasma-rich protein. The process is simple, Tom. They take blood from you and take it out from your arm, then take it into a machine, spin it, then take out the golden part of that blood, the serum, the protein-rich part, and then using microneedles, inject it back into other parts of your body, in this case, your face. And it can help plump up collagen. There's reports of it reducing fine lines, that type of thing.
Okay, so if somebody's injecting their own blood, then how are they getting HIV unless there's some sort of cross-contamination, right?
You hit the nail on the head. It's what the CDC found. You just described what is truly a nightmare for any infection control nurse, much less anybody who's a patient who walks in. But there are so many steps in that process: drawing the blood, making sure it's appropriately labeled, then taking out that kind of golden serum, and then even inject back into someone's face. So you could imagine with all those steps, Tom, if you don't label something, you don't swap out the needles, you don't make sure you're using sterile procedures, then you can have kind of a maelstrom of bad effects. And in this case, unfortunately, HIV.
You know, we've been talking about the risks of some cosmetic injections lately. Just recently, we did a story on fake Botox injections. Right. And it seems like maybe we're seeing all these treatments becoming kind of trendy. So what should people keep an eye out for if they do want to go to a spa to get a vampire facial or something else? Or maybe should they not? But I'll let you pick it up from there.
Right. We know that people are getting them, whether we recommend them or not. The American Academy of Dermatology has said that they haven't really found sufficient evidence for these facials. But, Tom, like you said, people are getting them. The CDC recommends that we put requirements in place for these aesthetic procedures. But until then, Tom, kind of beware of the environment. If you walk in and you're not seeing kind of these sterile practices, you don't notice people washing hands, putting gloves on, making sure they're double checking your name, your date of birth. If they do anything with blood, then get out. It's just not worth it. You should even be able to comfortably ask at the front desk and say, let me understand what your safety procedures are. Tom, these are cash pocket, out of pocket practice. This is not covered by insurance. You have the right to ask. Always ask up front.
And the right to walk away. Thank you, Dr. Patel. Appreciate it. All right. Still to come, we take you inside the juicy page-turning world of romance novels, now getting some new fans. That's coming up in our original.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.